Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 sent us on an incredible journey throughout the darkest parts of the factory, although along the way we encounter a handful of brand new characters, rather experiments with chilling yet fascinating backstories. So let's take a closer look at all of the new characters in Chapter 4.
Something giving you the jitters might just be the nightmare critters. Nightmare critters come to play to gross you out in every way. We can't wait to wreck your day, so be very afraid.
The story behind the Nightmare Critters wasn't exactly presented in the chapter. However, we can piece a few things together given what we have. Now, we first encounter them inside the prison feeding on other dead toys. While exploring, Harley points out how fearful we look and sends out a bunch of Nightmare Critters to test us. Now, this hints that Dr. Harley Sawyer is in fact able to control the Nightmare Critters. At a moment's notice, they obey his every command. But of course, we survive the attack. Continuing on, you'll notice inside Safe Haven there are no Nightmare Critters. Not even any drawings of them on the wall. Well, that's because the Nightmare Critters are of course enemies to the Smiling Critters. They are their evil counterparts, if you will. However, at one point they did get along, but after the Hour of Joy, things presumably changed. Both groups seem to take different sides. The bigger body Smiling Critters with Poppy and the Nightmare Critters with Harley. That being said, we know the mini Smiling Critters obeyed the prototype. Now, we haven't seen any bigger body versions of the Nightmare Critters, so it's unknown if they were even a thing. However, I like to assume that there were. That being said, there seems to be three different sizes of these characters. The minis, a smaller size, and the bigger bodies, if there are any. However, I'm not sure if the small size is the same as the minis. I mean, clearly this one is bigger than the others, but it's not big enough to be a bigger body. So honestly, I'm not sure how to explain that. I guess there's just different sizes. So why are the Nightmare Critters evil? Well, it's the same reason as the other villainous characters, for revenge. As we progress, we do get a little more information about them. We fall into a pit with a bunch of cages, and inside said cages are the Nightmare Critters. Again, no signs of bigger bodies, they're just the mini or small ones. It seems they were all locked inside these cages, but why? Well, it's never explained. Although what is explained is their purpose. Harley says, "You think poor Yarnaby was my only pet." This reveals that Harley does in fact control the Nightmare Critters, all sizes. They act as his pet, just like Yarnaby was. Unfortunately, this is where their story ends. The Nightmare Critters are examples of mistreatment. They were controlled by Harley, locked away, just like many of the other experiments.
Pianosaurus, he plays just for us. We join the chorus. P-I-A-A-O-saurus, playing his scales from his teeth to his tail.
It would take an extinction level event to stop this late Cretaceous composer.
He's the Pianosaurus, he plays just for us. We join the chorus.
Pianosaurus' time in the chapter is by far the shortest. However, in my opinion, he's still a very interesting character, a type that we have never seen before. I won't go too much into his appearance, but he is clearly a big green dinosaur. Interestingly enough, his design is made up of a few different dinos, and of course, he is mixed with piano keys. These keys run from his mouth all the way down to his tail. The toy version of this character was originally released as part of a full set of musicians, meaning there are actually other musical animal toy hybrid characters that we just haven't learned about yet. Pianosaurus served as the harmony for the group, and is able to play musical notes through the keys he has as teeth. That being said, we do not see it, but he is able to open his mouth to eat. Now, within the prison is the containment zone, a place where the scientists would observe the experiments. In one of these rooms, we are able to find a prisoner profile for experiment 1163. Pianosaurus. It explains he displayed none of the typical human qualities. Whatever human mind was used for the experiment appears to be gone altogether. 1163 was mindless. His predecessor, 1160, theorized to be Boxubu, the first successful bigger body, had uses, but Pianosaurus lacked the cunningness and size for a similar role. He's then described as a rabid animal. It snaps at perceived emotion, eats whatever fits in its mouth regardless of his appetite, combats the conditioning staff, and it cannot even play its proper piano rhythms in tune. So he was deemed useless and only used for testing. This is horrific to think about. It means Pianosaurus would now be cut open and experimented on over and over until he dies. He would be the last musical hybrid of his kind. Despite all the testing, Pianosaurus did survive long enough to witness or be a part of the Hour of Joy, meaning he was let out of his cell for the event, but eventually he was put back inside because this is where we see him in chapter 4. As we walk across the ledge, we fall right into his cell. He turns around and we see his teeth or piano notes light up. However, we don't actually hear any noise from them. This could mean a few different things. He might have been experimented on so much that he no longer has the ability to make noise when he tries to. Or this isn't the Pianosaurus we saw in his teaser video, meaning there could be another one somewhere in the factory. But that's kind of a stretch. Either way, considering he acts as a rabid animal, he sees us as food and begins to charge. I'm sure we've been the only real food he's seen in a long time. Suddenly, Doey in his monstrous form comes in from behind and grabs Pianosaurus, smashes him against the walls, and eats him. When this is happening, we can hear the piano notes playing, which is interesting considering what I just said. The last thing we see of him is his head as it slides over from the shadows. The rest of him will remain inside Doey's stomach. I have to quickly mention one more thing. Besides wasting this character with 30 seconds of screen time, I think it can actually be a testament at how quickly Playtime Co. can take away who you really are. Pianosaurus was likely just an innocent orphan. One day he was put to sleep and woke up inside of a toy, showing no signs of his past life. Just like that, the orphan's life was gone. This kind of resembles what happened in the chapter. We see Pianosaurus, and just like that, he's gone.
The fun never ends. Cozy and godly, your new best friend, Yarnaby.
I love braiding his hair.
He'll hold you close and keep you near,
He watches over me when I sleep.
protecting your dreams. The fun never ends. Cozy and godly, your new best friend, Yarnaby.
The toy version of Yarnaby resembles that of a lion. He has a heart of gold and a smile that touches your soul. He was released in the 1970s as part of a wildlife conservation campaign. This reveals there are others that are in that campaign, potentially more Yarn characters, but that's just my guess. Now, since the 1970s, Yarnaby has seen regular releases all throughout the years, so I think it's safe to say that he was a very popular character amongst the kids and fans of the company. Now, the backstory of the bigger body version to Yarnaby was already explained in the ARG, but I'll touch on it here as well. Quinn Davidson was an orphan living at Playcare and gained notoriety amongst the staff for his abnormal behavior and mediocre performance at the game station. Quinn was different, rather slightly off-putting, as he enjoyed cutting the heads off of dolls and rearranging them to make them pretty. This behavior soon attracted the eye of Dr. Harley Sawyer, but Quinn seemed to be hiding his true potential considering just how artistic he really was. Harley confronted Quinn about this and requested Quinn give it his all during his next test. Quinn agreed, and when his next series of tests arrived, he achieved top scores. Quinn did exactly what Dr. Harley Sawyer asked him to do. In August of 1990, Quinn Davidson was selected to become the bigger body of Yarnaby, also known as Experiment 1166. Following the procedure, Yarnaby displayed strange indications of loyalty to select members of the security staff. Sawyer figured out that this meant Yarnaby could be molded as he saw fit, so he had Yarnaby isolated from everyone but him. This led Yarnaby to form an attachment. He saw Harley as his master, so he intended to use Yarnaby as a personal guard dog. However, Harley ended up abandoning Yarnaby, which caused him to lapse into an unresponsive, unmotivated state. Therefore, Yarnaby was deemed a failure and left alone to rot inside of a cell. After the hour of joy, Harley released Yarnaby and convinced him to obey his old master and keep him safe. When we, the player, are first introduced to the character, Harley expresses that we are different. We have taken out all of the other toys, so he sends out something different of his own. Yarnaby, aka his guard dog. He runs out and scratches the glass, headbutts it, and lets out a big roar. From these actions, it's clear Yarnaby is a ferocious being. He wants nothing more than to attack, or rather just protect his master, Harley. The way he acts perfectly mimics how an aggressive guard dog would act. Within the next few areas, we need to sneak by Yarnaby and not raise attention. One thing to note here is that Yarnaby can't actually smell. He is only able to attack if he sees us. Most lions or dogs would be able to sniff out their prey, but Yarnaby is unable to do this. This could be a flaw in his bigger body design, or I'm overthinking it. Either way, I felt it was important to point out. During the cat and mouse game with Yarnaby, while he is looking for us, he will open his mouth and you can hear a sort of jingle. Unfortunately, this jingle is never elaborated on, but it could be the pathetic noises Harley mentioned in his prisoner profile document. During the final chase, Yarnaby attempts to jump over the incinerator, gets caught on the chain, and catches fire. He frees himself from the hook, only to fall deep into the void while burning alive. This is where Yarnaby's story ends, a poor guard dog that lost his life trying to please his master.
Doey the Doughman!
He's stretch you, he's gum you, he's squish you, he's fun you. D-O-E-Y. He's silly, he's goo you, he's sticky, he's glue you. D-O-E-Y.
Look at all the colors.
So many toys and one. Triple times the friend and triple times the fun. D-O-E-Y. Love it till the day that you die.
Call the number on screen and order your Doey today. Order now while supplies last. Shipping and handling costs may vary. Do not ingest or deliver any products in the Doey line.
The last character I want to talk about is Doey. Now, there is a ton to be said about this character, so again, I will be making a separate video studying him. But anyways, Doey originally hit the market in the late 1950s. He was Playtime Co.'s second major big hit. Over time, Doey was revamped and reinvigorated for each new decade. He was truly a timeless character. What made him so special was that he was made from dough. With Doey, you could let your imagination run wild, or just keep him as Doey. Because of how successful the toy had been over the years, of course he would be added to the Bigger Bodies initiative. However, Doey would become something special. Instead of using one orphan, Doey would be crafted using 3 different boys, each with their own distinctive personalities, hence the 3-arm design on his body. This would allow him to have multiple purposes considering he could shapeshift. Doey was known as Experiment 1322, and the 3 boys were all labeled with A, B, and C. 1322A was known as Jack Ayers, who had gotten a tour at the Playtime Co. factory for Christmas, alongside a Doey the Doughman toy. While on this tour inside the dough mixing room, Jack staggered behind the group. He leaned a little too far over the railing and fell into a vat of dough. To save him, not wanting to waste a life, Playtime Co. used him for Doey. Now, Jack's longing for his parents and normal life is often reflected in Doey amongst his cries throughout Chapter 4. 1322B was Kevin Barnes, a temperamental boy known for throwing tantrums and hurting everyone around him when overwhelmed, even his friends. For some reason, Harley decided this personality would be perfect for Doey. Kevin can be seen when Doey gets filled with rage in the chapter. He would lash out towards everyone, even his own allies. The last boy was a smart, well-mannered teenager named Matthew Hallard, 1322C, a dream child. He would always take care of those around him, making some of the scientists hesitant about wasting him on an experiment. Matthew's personality shines through Doey as he guides survivors inside Safe Haven as their leader. He always presents himself as strong and reliable, giving hope to the survivors. When we meet Doey, he is extremely kind and even helps us safely make it to Safe Haven. But throughout the story, he is hesitant with Poppy's plan. He doesn't want to see the toys die because they are people too, not just monsters. After they're all taken out and Safe Haven gets destroyed by the prototype, Doey gets overwhelmed. He fills with rage, guilt, and sorrow. the three boys' personalities, as he transforms into a monster with 3 heads. These represent the 3 boys. We are eventually forced to kill Doey, and when doing so, he takes his last breath to apologize for his actions, reminding us that, like he said before, these monsters are people too. That was all of the new characters we meet in Chapter 4. I decided not to talk about Harley in this video because there is a lot to unpack with his character, so I wanted to wait and really dive into his character in a separate video. That being said, I plan on doing this with Yarnaby and Doey as well. Especially Doey, there is also a ton to be said about him, so make sure to stay tuned for those character studies. What did you think of the characters in Chapter 4? Honestly, I thought they were all a little anticlimactic, but still really interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like horror game content like this, please consider subscribing. Also, I just made a Discord server, so if you want to chat with me, I recommend joining. And if you want to support the channel more, you can become a member. Don't forget to follow my Twitter at TerrifiedT. Thanks for watching.